If you've ever been underestimated, disrespected, or left out by the people who are supposed to love you the most, hit that like button and buckle up. This isn't just a story about payback. It's about legacy, loyalty, and a grandmother who reminded me that sometimes the best revenge is delivered with a laugh. So I still remember the way the room smelled. Polished oak furniture, cigar smoke clinging to old velvet drapes, the faint scent of dust, memory, and money. We were all packed into the study of my late grandfather's estate. My Aunt Maureen, all smug in her $1,000 heels. My cousin Spencer, scrolling through his phone like this was just another brunch. And Uncle Neil, pretending to look sad while secretly licking his lips over what he thought was coming. I stood quietly in the corner. Not quite part of the family. Not quite invisible either. Just waiting. The lawyer, a stiff old man with round glasses and no soul, cleared his throat. This is the last will and testament of Gerald Thorne. My grandfather, the only man in this entire room who ever made me feel like I mattered. He taught me how to play chess, how to rebuild a motorcycle engine from scratch. He called me Maverick before anyone else ever did. Said I was born to cause a little chaos in all the right ways. And I believed him, which made what happened next hit like a knife through my spine. To my beloved daughter Maureen, I leave my collection of antique jewelry in the beach house in Montauk. To my nephew Spencer, I leave my portfolio of tech investments to support his entrepreneurial endeavors. To my brother Neil, I leave the remaining estate property and funds, including my wine cellar, library, and cash assets. I waited, heart pounding, staring at the lawyer like maybe, just maybe, he'd made a mistake. And then came the words. Cold. Final. No further assets are to be distributed. Silence. Then a slow scrape of Maureen's heels as she crossed her legs and smiled directly at me. Spencer snorted. Neil gave a sympathetic shrug, like he was sorry, but not sorry enough to say a damn word. I was cut out. Just like that. The room spun. My hands were shaking. I didn't even know what to say. Grandfather loved me. This wasn't possible. Unless someone had gotten to him. The whispers started before I even left the room. He always was a little unstable. Never had a real job. You know how Gerald was near the end? Probably confused. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I walked out. Silent. Just like they wanted. I didn't go home. I drove for hours. Ended up parked in front of an old diner I used to go to as a kid. Sat there with a stale coffee in my hand, replaying every moment I'd shared with my grandfather. Every time he said he was proud of me. Every project we built together. I wasn't greedy. I didn't even care about the money. What gutted me was the erasure. The way they all sat there like I was a mistake they had finally corrected. Like I didn't belong. Over the next week, the calls stopped. No follow-up. No explanations. No apology. The family group chat went silent, except for Maureen occasionally dropping pictures of Montauk sunsets and champagne brunches. They had one, and I was discarded. But the thing about being underestimated, it's a beautiful thing, because they didn't just take me out of the will. They woke something up, something sharp, focused, and just angry enough to start planning. That's when I opened a fresh notebook, wrote 3 words on the first page. They will pay. And below that, I wrote a 4th. With laughter, because if they thought I was done, if they thought cutting me out meant I'd disappear, they clearly forgot who raised me. Gerald Thorne may be gone, but his favorite troublemaker just got started. Revenge doesn't start with fire. It starts with observation. While they celebrated my erasure, I got to work. Quietly, patiently, and I didn't need to break into bank accounts or hack into phones. People today, they give away everything. All I had to do was watch. I started with Maureen, my aunt, the self-declared energy healer, though her true religion was control. She claimed to be spiritual, but let's be honest, she'd sell her chakras for a lake house and call it divine alignment. I found her secret Instagram in less than 10 minutes. Not the polished, PR-friendly one where she posts quotes like, live, laugh, love, loot. No, I found a real one. Username? Midnight Siren 68. Buried beneath 1,000 filters and terrible lighting, I uncovered her guilty pleasure. Karaoke. Not just karaoke, drunken, screeching, full-body performances in front of her mirror. Celine Dion, Shania Twain, even some Limp Bizkit for reasons unknown, complete with choreography that could cause actual injury. She uploaded them thinking they were private. They weren't. Next, Spencer, my cousin, thinks he's a tech genius because he once built a website in high school and made $80 from it. Now he calls himself a digital brand architect. Translation: he sits in coffee shops with no headphones, waiting for people to ask what he does. But what Spencer really does is run a burner YouTube account, a cat reaction channel, thousands of videos of him, face fully visible, watching cat compilations, making commentary like, "Whoa, that one jumped so high. Aw, fluffy baby alert. Yo, this cat's got hands." It's weirdly wholesome. It's also kind of embarrassing when your whole brand is tech startup alpha male. Then there was Neil. Uncle Neil. Buttoned up, boring, wine-sniffing Neil. Always said he didn't have hobbies. Said hobbies were for underachievers. But funny thing, I noticed flour on his shirts and multiple family photos. So I followed the trail. And one night I caught him through the glass window of his guest house kitchen. Neil baking. At 1:47 a.m., he was attempting a 3-tier cake. It looked like a collapsing meatball. He screamed when it fell over. Like, full volume, Game of Thrones scream. I caught the whole thing on a motion-triggered wildlife cam I'd hidden in the garden. It was perfect. And here's the thing. This wasn't just about humiliating them. This was about balance. They judged me, dismissed me, erased me like I didn't have value. So I decided to show them their own cracks. Hold up the mirror and make sure it shattered. I created what I called the family fun files. Each folder labeled with their name. Each file stacked with screenshots, clips, links, and notes. The deeper I dug, the more I realized. They weren't just flawed. They were fragile. And fragile people break beautifully, especially when they think they're invincible. One night, as I finalized the last folder, I sat back, took a breath, and looked at the stack. And I smiled. But before I could even start crafting my master plan, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. You're not the only one seeking revenge. I froze. Another message followed. Check the living room couch. I didn't know whether to be paranoid or intrigued. I chose both. The next morning, I went back to the family estate under the excuse of wanting closure. They didn't even question it, because to them, I was just the forgotten one trying to heal. But when I walked into the living room, there it was, a whoopee cushion, sitting perfectly placed on Maureen's designer couch. Next to it, a note. Round 1. For a moment, I just stood there. And then, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because someone else was playing this game. And suddenly, this wasn't just a mission anymore. It was a war. And I wasn't fighting alone. There's a moment in every revenge story where things shift, where the plot thickens, the tension tightens, and the game changes entirely. For me, that moment arrived in the form of a rubber spider web and a hallway filled with fog. Yes, fog. It happened the day after I found the whoopee cushion. I returned to the estate under the guise of visiting Grandma. She was the only one in the family who hadn't actively treated me like garbage during the Will fiasco, though she hadn't exactly stood up for me either. When I walked in, Spencer was pacing the front hallway, swatting the air like he was fighting ghosts. "What the hell is this?" he shouted, waving his arms through a thick white haze. The hallway looked like a Halloween attraction gone wrong. Fog swirling from under the staircase, faint colored lights flickering through it like we were a haunted rave. Then Maureen shrieked from the sitting room. "Why is there a fake tarantula in my purse?" She ran out, heels clicking across the hardwood, flinging her designer bag like it had caught fire. Neil emerged next, coughing dramatically. Some kind of chemical prank. "This is juvenile." I almost laughed out loud, because none of it was mine. That night, I stayed late, pretending to help Grandma organize old photo albums. She was sitting in her usual armchair, wearing a cozy shawl and a blank expression. Her age showed more in her silence than in her skin. She just seemed distant. Or, at least, she pretended to. I asked if she'd noticed anything strange lately. She looked up slowly, squinting at me. And then, very faintly, she smirked. "Strange, dear," she said softly. Define strange. I stared at her, unsure if she was playing with me. So I pushed. "Someone's been pulling pranks. Classic stuff. Old school even." She leaned in slightly. Old school like this. And then, no warning, she pulled a string from beneath her chair cushion, and a small mechanical voice box let out a perfectly timed fart noise. I choked, not from disgust, from shock. Her eyes sparkled. You're not the only one with tricks up your sleeve, Maverick. My grandmother, Eleanor Thorne, was the mystery prankster. Not only that, she'd been running this game for weeks, possibly longer. While everyone thought she was old, frail, and fading, she'd been watching and striking, subtly, strategically. Your grandfather and I used to pull the best pranks at university, she said. People thought we were harmless, which is exactly what made it so easy. I asked her why she'd start again now. Her smile vanished. Her voice turned quiet but sharp. Because I saw what they did to you, to Gerald's legacy, and to this family. She reached under her chair and pulled out a small black notebook. You have your files, I have mine. We stayed up for hours comparing notes. Turns out, Grandma had been collecting dirt long before I had. Photos, recordings, handwritten memos, copies of emails she wasn't supposed to see. Maureen's shady financial habits. Spencer's startup investors being fake. Neil's secret attendance at competitive baking classes under a pseudonym, Butter Daddy. We didn't just laugh. We bonded. For the first time since Grandpa passed, I didn't feel like I was alone in the storm. They think we're weak, she said, refilling our tea. But we're the most dangerous people in this family. Because we watch, and we wait. That night before I left, she handed me a flash drive, labeled, "In case of emergency." You're not ready to use it yet, she said. But when the time comes, trust me, it'll be the final nail in their little golden coffins. I asked her what it was. She just winked. Something your grandfather and I set in motion years ago. Our final legacy. As I walked to my car, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Not just anger, not just focus, but momentum. Because now I wasn't just out for revenge. I had a partner. And together, we were going to burn this circus down with confetti. 1 week. That's how long we gave ourselves. 1 week to plan, prepare, and execute what Grandma proudly called Operation Family Roast. Her words, not mine. We started with the invitation. A carefully worded email sent from my account to the family group thread. Hey everyone, I've done a lot of thinking since the will. Grandpa wouldn't want us torn apart. I want to try again. Let's have a family dinner. My treat. Just us. 1 night of peace. Maureen responded immediately. How mature of you, Maverick. I'm proud. Translation. This better be an apology. Spencer replied with a single thumbs-up emoji. Neil asked if the dress code was business casual. Of course it was Neil. Next, the venue. We chose the old dining hall on the property, once used for family reunions, now mostly dust and ghosts. Perfect. We deep cleaned it, polished the chandeliers, set up hidden speakers, mounted a projector, and rigged a fog machine in the air vents for a dramatic finale. Grandma even insisted on nameplates for every seat, each with a subtle inside joke carved into it. Maureen said Diva Supreme. Spencer said Cat Whisperer. Neil's? Butter Daddy. We almost died laughing, just setting the table. Now we needed the content. All the dirt we'd collected, photos, video clips, and social media gold, got compiled into a 12-minute roast reel titled, The Real Thorne Legacy. Here's a taste. Maureen, in full makeup and silk kimono, singing Wrecking Ball off-key into a hairbrush while tripping over a yoga mat. Spencer, narrating cat videos in his baby voice. One clip ended with him meowing back at the screen. Neil, in a flour-dusted apron, screaming at a lopsided sponge cake, yelling, You were supposed to be elegant, you doughy bitch. All time-stamped, all high definition, all ready to play on loop. We even baked a cake. Grandma's idea. 3 tiers, frosted white, with elegant black piping. On the top tier, a golden topper that read cut out and coming back. And inside the cake, a chocolate coin for each family member. Except only 1 coin was real gold. Guess whose piece it would be in? The night of the dinner arrived. The table was set. The fog machine was ready. The room looked beautiful and loaded. I wore a crisp black suit. Grandma wore pearls. We looked like a hit squad at a wedding. They arrived exactly on time. Maureen first, dripping with jewelry and suspicion. Spencer next, yawning like he'd rather be streaming. Neil, of course, brought a bottle of wine and nothing else. Fake hugs, stiff smiles, backhanded compliments. We sat. Dinner began. First course, silence and side-eye. Then came the speech. I stood up, glass in hand. I know we've had our differences lately, but I just wanted one night of honesty. So before dessert, I made a little tribute. To Grandpa, and to all of you. Grandma clicked the remote. The lights dimmed. The screen came to life. And then, the roast began. Maureen's eyes widened the second her karaoke video started playing. Turn that off right now. The room shook with her screeching voice and her screeching outrage. Spencer turned pale as his cat commentary echoed through the hall. Oh God, no. Delete that. Neil spilled his wine when his baking meltdown filled the screen. You violated my privacy. They screamed. They accused. They fumed. And just when Maureen reached for the power cord, fog flooded the room. We timed it perfectly. Through the mist came the final screen. Real family isn't blood. It's the ones who stand by you when the knives come out. Love, Grandma and Maverick. Then Grandma stood, tapped her glass, and said calmly, one more thing. She pulled a manila envelope from her handbag and dropped it on the table. This is the legal restructuring of Gerald Thorne's trust. As per his wishes, and mine, the inheritance was rerouted years ago, hidden in a family shell corporation, overseen by me. She smiled. Congratulations, Maverick. You're the majority heir. Maureen gasped like she'd been shot. Neil dropped his fork. Spencer whispered, wait, what? And I just sat there, calm, collected. Everything they thought they stole was already mine. For a few seconds, no one moved. Not a word, not a breath, just silence, thick as smoke. Maureen was frozen mid-reach, her manicured fingers hovering over her wine glass. Neil sat back like he'd just watched a crime scene unfold. Spencer blinked, then laughed nervously like maybe this was a joke. But it wasn't. Oh no, this was real, and it was glorious. Grandma turned to me and handed over the manila envelope. Inside were documents, bank records, trust transfers, legal memos. All clean, all binding, all signed and notarized years ago. Turns out, she and Grandpa had suspected this family war would happen. They planned ahead. They made a backup will, a quiet legal one that could only be triggered under one condition. If the family turned on me, they didn't just protect the money. They protected me. I looked at the signatures. Grandpa's handwriting still firm and elegant. And beneath it, Grandma's initials. The seal of love and loyalty. What? I whispered to her. She smiled, eyes glassy but fierce. Because Gerald always said you were the only one with heart and brains. He knew the rest would crumble the minute the spotlight shifted. She turned to the table. And crumble you did. Maureen launched into a tantrum. This is illegal. I'll contest it. I'll drag this to court. Grandma raised a brow. Go ahead. But you might want to review the part where you signed away contestation rights in exchange for that beach house you couldn't wait to get your claws on. Maureen's jaw dropped. Spencer looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. Neil poured himself another glass of wine and said nothing at all. Of course he didn't. What could he say? Then came dessert. The cake. We brought it out together, Grandma and I, like royalty presenting a trophy. 3 tiers of sugary elegance. Inside, 7 chocolate coins. I handed each of them a slice. Told them 1 coin was real gold. One final game. None of them found it. Because I never put the gold coin in the cake. I wore it around my neck, on a chain Grandpa gave me years ago. We sat and ate our dessert as they stewed in silence. It wasn't anger anymore. It was something worse. Defeat. They'd lost the power, the narrative, the money. And worst of all, they'd lost the one person who could have forgiven them. Later that night, when the dust settled and the hall was empty, Grandma and I sat alone, sipping tea in the same room where they once erased me. She leaned back, smiling faintly. Do you feel better? I thought about it. Strangely, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clear, grounded. I don't know if it fixed anything, I said, but it reminded me of who I am and who I'm not. She nodded. That's all it was ever about. I stayed by her side until she dozed off in her armchair. And as I looked at her, this mischievous, brilliant, beautifully dangerous woman, I realized something. My inheritance wasn't money. It was her. Her wisdom, her resilience, her ruthlessness, laced with love. The family may have tried to erase me, but in the end, I rewrote the story. And I signed it with a flourish. In bold, permanent ink. Just like Grandpa would have wanted. In the end, revenge didn't make me rich. It just reminded me that loyalty is louder than greed. And when it comes to family, sometimes the ones worth keeping are the ones willing to burn it all down with you. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button and drop a comment. What's your favorite revenge move? And don't forget to subscribe for more twisted, satisfying tales like this one. Until next time, keep your secrets sharp and your allies closer.